everyone, Gail Heaton here. Homeschooling my children began at birth for five of them and at adoption at age 7 for two of them. My oldest is 31 and the youngest is 22. So each of my 7 children are very unique. So the experiences that I gained teaching them have been quite different. You know what this means, right? It means I retired from homeschooling several years ago with 119 years experience. So I have 4 points that I want to share with you built on that 119 years of experience. Now, these points have either come from experience in me doing things the right way through the years or experience doing the wrong things through the years. And those of you who have spent any time with me in person or online, you'll probably figure out pretty quick which of the two scenarios usually fit me. And that's okay because none of us can get this right straight out of the gate. And that should be my point number 1, but I'm going to make that a bonus. If you're looking to use homeschooling as a showcase of how well you have it together, you probably need to choose a different showcase because having it all together and homeschooling children, or even just having children, that just doesn't mix. Well, actually, now that I think about it, this bonus tip kind of really goes along with my first point. Show up to give. I'm going to get the biggie out of the way. Are you looking to get validation for yourself as a person by how well your children are doing in your homeschool? If you're just starting out, are you nervous about how your kids will compare to other kids who are still public schooled because of how that might reflect on you? Are you already concerned whether your child might fall behind or be behind for that same reason? If so, I get it. Most of us struggle with these kinds of thoughts, and maybe we don't like to admit it, but it's okay because I'd like you to become aware of it and then move away from that thinking. To be successful in homeschooling, you got to do it for them. Snotty noses, dirty clothing, not knowing their times tables, unfocused, squirmy, God love them, those kids of yours. I think we all have an expectation that the world is judging us when we homeschool. You know, especially in the very, very early days of the homeschooling movement, all eyes were actually on the 1 or 2 families that were homeschooling, and they kind of became this unwitting poster family. My kids have to perform well so I don't give homeschooling a bad name, or so I don't look bad, or to prove it to the know-it-all sister or whatever. But honestly, if you're homeschooling for reasons other than it's in the best interest of your children, if you're homeschooling to get your needs met, in the long run, it's not going to go well for you or your children. You will struggle. But God's got you, like He got me. I started out wanting my kids to listen when it was time to listen, sing when it was time to sing, work when it was time to work. And when they didn't do those things, I felt like the failure. And that put pressure on them. So when, not if, when they don't let it ruin your day. I let it ruin my day because I believed that their behaviors, poor behaviors, reflected badly on me. And that's when I sort of tightened the grip. When I think about the pressure on the kids, it's a lot. So what I now know that I want to share with you is that kids are inherently inquisitive. Their natural God-given bent is not to sit and listen passively. but it's to interact with the teaching, with their whole selves. And especially young children, they naturally engage in learning about their environment using all of their senses. And that's just not going to look like public school kids sitting in a classroom all day, raising their hands to go to the bathroom. And it also means that as they grow and mature, or at least grow, they may question the faith that they were raised in. And it may mean that they march to their own drum beat, even though it's a different beat than the family. And it may mean that they really will make you look bad if you're looking for validation from how well they act. Most of us don't intentionally use our kids for our own validation. It kind of sneaks up on us. So prayerfully ask God if some of your underlying and fear and anxiety that's centered around homeschooling, if it has that root. It may not, but it's worth a look. The next biggie is when homeschooling plans don't work out. When your list of this is what I want to accomplish today doesn't happen. When your expectation for a great educational day gets shattered by whiny and complaining kids. Situational awareness. So every successful teacher or presenter knows that there's going to be times when what they want to teach or present kind of has to take a back seat in order to meet the true needs of the audience. So in this scenario, audience is your children. I was watching a TED Talk a while ago by this presenter, and he told this story about being hired to give a presentation to a business group on some particular topic. So he flew into the venue, went to the venue, right? And then when he got there, he realized that the participants had been taking advantage of an open air bar situation at the hotel. So they weren't exactly in the right frame of mind to listen to a professional talk on whatever it was that the presenter had prepared. So the presenter didn't panic. He kind of loosened up his demeanor and came to the level of the audience. He basically told funny stories that had a teaching point. Well, he was a hit. The audience actually learned much, he said, if not all, of what he wanted to teach them in the first place. And the atmosphere was light and fun, which matched the atmosphere going on in the room for the audience, right? So whatever your personal stance on drinking is, that's not the point of the story. The point is that the presenter looked to see what the audience needed in that moment and focused on that, not just what it was that he wanted to tell. So by meeting their needs, which in this case was loosening himself up, loosening up the presentation, not making it so professional, ditching the PowerPoint, he was able to show the audience that he's on their side. So that's kind of what you can do in your homeschool. If your child is whiny, look for the need behind the behavior. Connect with them first. Meet their need if possible. And then, and only then, can you get that learning train moving again. So whether it's like a math problem, like a really tough math problem that they're having and that they're just really frustrated, or they're in a bad mood, or whatever it is, you can do whatever you can to show your child that it's you and them together against the problem. It's not you against your child. So remember, connection before correction. Find out why they're feeling out of sorts. Help them to express it, and then, and only then, will they be in the position to learn. So we know from neuroscience that when little brains shut down, we've lost the teaching moment. They physiologically will not be able to learn until they come out of like their little survival brain and get back into their thinking brain. So when you make your daily goal, instead of a checklist of this is what we're going to cover academically today, when you make your daily goal staying connected with their little hearts, you may not get everything done on your list academically, but you will notice a vast improvement in their ability to learn. The third point that I want to share is what I think is one of the best methods that I've found for creating lasting learning. Include story in your teaching. Stories paint a picture in one's mind, and they're longer lasting. So think about how powerful it is that the retelling of the original Passover story. Think about how we're encouraged in the scriptures to make this retelling a priority for our families to participate in. And think about how the Passover story unites us as one people. Now, take that principle of the importance of retelling important family stories and use it to help form your family's identity, because this is actually going to be something that will take your children through their adult years. Now, the whole idea of being in a community, that's like a lost art form, especially those of us in the United States. We're a people of like really rugged individualism. You know, we wear a banner that says, I don't need anybody but myself. I'm self-sufficient. So check yourself and see if you might have been missing opportunities with your children to help them form a strong identity as family, both in yours and in the greater body of Messiah. You know, God is into unity of truth, and he's into community. He wants us to have a strong and unified family that will carry our children through to when they move out of our homes and into homes of their own. So teach your children their story, along with all the other academic subjects that you teach them. Teach them the story of both the immediate family and then the story of their greater family of God. Give them an identity into something that is larger than themselves. So how does one form a strong sense of identity? Well, that's kind of where storytelling comes in. Interestingly, social researchers have shown that it's narration, storytelling, that's how humans kind of make sense of their world, and they do it by sharing ideas that matter and by building relationships that kind of promote survival as a people. So you can use storytelling to build your family identity. Now, every one of your children are forming their identity, and they, like us, need to answer 3 fundamental questions. Who am I? Why am I here? How then shall I live? Okay, so storytelling the next generation builds their identity, but at the same time, it will strengthen yours. The single best thing that you can do for your own identity is to retell the stories of the scriptures to your children. Retell the stories of your own family, because both of them will connect you today to the rich heritage of those who came before you, and they will connect you to your children who come after you. So you tell stories that demonstrate to you and to them that you, they, we are all heirs to the greatest story ever told. And then give your children opportunities to retell these stories to somebody else. Because what's the best way to remember something? retell it to someone else. Now, we get a lot of prompts to tell stories that matter from Scripture, time and time again, like, especially in the book of Deuteronomy. We're told to remember that we're slaves in Egypt. We're told to remember what Amalek did to us. We're told to remember what God did to Miriam. Now, the thing about our wonderful brains is that they help us retain memories, but only when we're actively using those memories. Otherwise, because our brains are so efficient, they will prune channels of memory that are unused. So that phrase, use it or lose it, that certainly applies. So it's really not a random thing that we're told over and over again in Scripture to remember, to retell. So when you're thinking about academic subjects, learn your history so that you can remember. And remember your history so you can retell it to your children. Memory is internalized and it's made part of one's identity. And our identity is tied to that marvelous collective memory of others, and it grows stronger with each ritual retelling of a story. One of the things that my children love to hear is from their dad is their birth story, the day of their birth. And for our adopted sons, the whole wonderful, miraculous story of how they came to be in our family. You do have a very high calling to be a guardian of the memories. And that is a lofty responsibility. It's a responsibility to the past, to the present, and to the future. But please don't be frightened by that responsibility. Our Heavenly Father is never looking for perfection. Even if our own trauma triggers think that we have to do everything perfectly or what? Are you a perfectionist? Do you just stop trying sometimes because you just know that you're going to fail at this homeschooling thing? Maybe you had some setbacks when you were younger and now you're kind of bringing that junk into your parenting. Those are fire-breathing dragons of the past because you're dragging that old stuff into today. I got that from my husband, dragging the old stuff around. But I got the idea of fire-breathing dragons from Dr. Daniel Amen. He's a brain doctor who's written tons of books on the subject of taming your dragons from the past. And he also taught me about something called an ant infestation that I want to share with you, because oftentimes when we go about homeschooling our children, we get all caught up in our thinking and our brains and think of all the negative things that are happening. So ANT, A-N-T, stands for automatic negative thoughts. A-N-T, automatic negative thoughts. Those are the ants that ruin your day, steal your happiness, and prolong grief. So Dr. Amen teaches that just because you have a thought that comes into your head, that has nothing to do with whether or not it's true. He says thoughts lie sometimes. Sometimes they lie a lot. And it's your uninvestigated or unquestioned thoughts that steal your happiness and stop you in your tracks. If you don't question or correct erroneous thoughts, if you believe them, then you're going to act as if they're 100% true. Now, this isn't, what he's suggesting isn't positive thinking. It's accurate, honest thinking. You don't have to believe every thought that you have. So when it comes to homeschooling or parenting or just being a human, when you have ants, when you have negative thoughts, automatic negative thoughts, here's like a 4-step process that can help you with this. The first one is to write down the automatic negative thoughts. There's something about writing down ants that helps get them out of those little invaders, get them out of your head and putting them on paper. You can see it right there. And then ask yourself if the thought is true. Are you sure? Are you 100% sure that it's true? And then ask yourself how you feel when you have that thought. Then and write that down too. Then ask yourself, how would you feel without that thought? Write that down. Then number 4, you just repeat this. You make ant killing a daily habit. So let's give an example using just a very general, I'm failing at homeschooling. Okay, so that's what you would write down. That's your ant. And then you ask yourself, is this true? Am I 100% sure it's true that I'm failing, like completely? And then you would ask, well, how do I feel when I think that I'm failing? Well, I feel like a loser. I feel like not trying again. I feel like it's never going to get better. And then ask yourself, how would you feel if you didn't have this thought? Well, I would feel empowered. If I didn't have that thought that I'm failing, if I got stuck on something, I would just try a different workaround, right? I get it. It takes it takes a while to overcome your ants. Okay, it's a habit that we've gotten into to believe every thought that comes to our head. It's going to take a while to get out of that thinking. And on those days that you're infested, just know that all you need to do for your kids is to show up and be honest with them that you're having a struggly day. Don't hide all your struggles from your kids. Because when you think about it, how else will they see that you and God together are doing battle against your day unless they see you model this? Now, I'm not saying that you need to be modeling perfection. I'm saying let them see you model how to overcome, because overcoming is a process. So when you think about the academic subjects to teach your children, when you think about how to incorporate more storytelling into your day, I want you not to forget to think about teaching them emotional health and modeling that for them. Even if you are like most of us and kind of learning about this right now, you can learn it alongside them. So I want you to know, as a retired homeschool teacher of 119 years experience, I want you to know that I'm proud of you for being in the game for your kids. I'm proud of you for showing up even if you're a hot mess, like we all are. I'm proud of you for wanting to give of yourself to your children and to use godly parenting and homeschooling principles to do that. And I want you to remember Gideon. When you think about how you're being called to homeschool, I want you to remember Gideon hiding in a wine press when he was called by God. I also want you to feel free to reach out to me for more specific strategies that are related to these 4 points, because I know I didn't give you a lot of practical help. And I'm personally all about the practical, not just the theory. So remember, you can do this homeschooling thing. And I will see you around the block.